John Steinbeck said, "Learning to read is probably the most difficult and revolutionary thing that happens to the human brain. And if you don't believe that, watch an illiterate adult try to do it." The inability to read proficiently puts a person at an automatic disadvantage and at risk for incarceration, poverty, and disease. To counter illiteracy and the negative effects associated with it, the Kansas City community needs to focus not just on the individual, but family units in order to break the cycle of illiteracy by implementing family literacy programs. Today, I will share some of my personal experience with illiteracy in Kansas City with you, as well as give you some information about life for a person who is illiterate and what type of people typically suffer from it. And finally, I will explain exactly what I mean when I say family literacy as a solution. Personally, literacy has never been a struggle for me, and I didn't even realize it was a problem until this past spring. For a service learning class, I was required to complete 20 hours of tutoring at nearby Hogan Preparatory Academy. It's a charter school not too far from campus that is 98% African American, with 97% of the students qualifying for free lunch programs. That means the majority of students are living in low-income housing. I met many students while I was there and got to know quite a few of them. However, none of them stick out quite as clearly as DeAnthony. I had the pleasure of working with DeAnthony in his language arts class. He's a junior. And the first time I met him, I thought he was a good-looking kid. He was taller, and compared to some of his classmates, he was lankier. When I asked him how, he was more muscular. When I asked him how old he was, he told me 16, but I'll be 17 in a month. He smiled confidently and joked with his friends until it was time to read out loud. In our small group, it came to his turn to read from George Orwell's Animal Farm. And suddenly he wasn't the confident young man I had met. He slouched in his chair, eyes looking intently at the page, and he was silent. His friends, openly joking with him before class, were silent. I prompted him with the first few words of the paragraph, just in case he had lost his place, and he repeated those words back to me before trailing off and again falling into silence, hunched over his desk. Finally, I couldn't take the quiet anymore and started reading for him. However, my mind started churning as I realized that this young man, who 10 minutes ago proudly told me he was turning 17 in a month, maybe couldn't read. In the following class, I finally asked DeAnthony's teacher if she had any concerns about DeAnthony's reading ability, because I had been unable to stop thinking about it. Unfortunately, she confirmed my fears. She said, "I don't think I've ever heard him read out loud. He's testing at a first or kindergarten level. He has like a 14% in my class. That's not a conversation I'll forget anytime soon." I wish I could say that DeAnthony was an isolated case, but there was a poster on the back wall of the classroom depicting the reading data of the 11th grade class of Hogan as of December 2015. And the highest percentage, with 23% of the junior class, was reading at or below a 5th grade level. Students that were about to graduate in a year weren't even reading at a high school level. And I wish I could say Hogan as a whole was an isolated case. But a study done in April 2013 by the U.S. Department of Education and the National Institute for Literacy found that 14%, or 32 million Americans, can't read, and an additional 21% of Americans read below a 5th grade level. Who are these people? Illiteracy affects certain demographics more than others, and after doing some research, I found that DeAnthony unfortunately fits the bill. In her book, Multiplication is for White People, Delpech classified young African American males as the most likely, quote, to be classified as mentally retarded or suffering from a learning or emotional disability, end quote. And in her article published in the Journal of Negro Education in 2014, Cassandra Chaney put it a little more bluntly by saying, "Illiterate black boys grow up to be illiterate black men, who, compared to other racial groups in the country, are more vastly represented in the jails and prisons." I do not find it a coincidence that the same group of people most likely to be illiterate is the same group of people most likely to be incarcerated. And incarceration, A lack of basic reading skills translates to a lack of basic school and job skills, which makes it more difficult to be a productive member of society. And incarceration does not just apply to adults either. Emily Music cites a study done by Begin to Read in 2011, which found that 85% of all juveniles who come into contact with the juvenile justice system are functionally illiterate. For African American youth, especially males, scholars sometimes refer to this phenomenon as the school-to-prison pipeline. Incarceration is only one way illiteracy can negatively impact a person's life. The effects can be felt at an early age at home. After all, many predictors of illiteracy come from a child's home life. Children living at or below the poverty level are more likely to struggle academically, and the reason is not a lack of ability or even a lack of potential ability, but simply a lack of opportunity. Not surprisingly, families can play a critical role in a child's academic success. Research has shown that participating in stimulating reading and writing activities at home aid children in developing critical literary skills. However, this is not always easy for everybody. If parents suffer from low education and literacy rates themselves, and additionally, parents with low education have a harder time finding sustainable income for their families. Another challenge faced by people struggling with literacy deals with their health. I take a doctor-prescribed medicine, and I'm sure some of you do too. How different would life be if you couldn't read the label, or you couldn't read the instructions to take the medicine properly? Health literacy is defined as the degree to which the individual has the capacity to obtain, process, and understand basic health information and services needed to make appropriate health decisions. Unsurprisingly, people found with the most low health literacy were African Americans, non-English speakers, and people of low income. In general, it may seem like the solution to this problem is very easy. Just teach people to read. And while that is certainly the overall goal, it is not always that easy. I propose we shift our focus from the individual to the family unit. Family literacy is an educational method working on the common belief that improvement in literacy skills and overall academic performance results from the continued education of children and their parents through planned parent-child interaction. It capitalizes on the strengths of a family while seeking to reverse the cycle of disadvantage and illiteracy. Here's a basic layout of how a family literacy program will work. In a family literacy program, parents will receive instructions which they can then translate to their children, which then translate to children working better in the classroom, behaving better, and having a better interaction with their families. Amy Brawlin-Terlitsky and Julia Wilkins conducted a study on family literacy programs. They observed and followed up with families from 15 different family literacy programs across the countries. They found that parents, after participating in these programs, had improved literacy skills, improved interpersonal relationship skills, confidence in themselves, and confidence in helping their children reach their reading goals. They also found that children gained a greater confidence in their abilities, which led to an increased motivation to engage in literacy activities at school and at home. Also, children who demonstrated disruptive behavior showed a better ability to regulate their behavior after participating in the programs. Unfortunately, I don't have enough time today to go into this complex topic or to dig deeper into the solution. However, I hope I've made you aware of a very real problem in the United States and here in Kansas City. By implementing family literacy programs, we not only teach people to read, but break the cycle of illiteracy to benefit future generations. Thank you.